Considered one of America's greatest engineering mistakes, the Salton Sea shouldn't even exist. These days, few visit the Salton Sea, though the wind is just right, tens of thousands can smell it. According to the environmentalists, the sea is a mind-boggling mix of contradictions. It's teeming with imported fish, yet suffers mass wildlife die-offs. It once supported a booming tourist industry, but now is largely deserted. Some environmentalists want to see it return to its desert past, while others argue that it should be preserved because it now hosts legions of plants and animals that have been pushed out of its historic California homes by human activities. Today I will tell you about the history of the Salton Sea and the rich history of our valley. And next, I will inform you of the important role the Salton Sea plays in present day. Finally, I will go over the facts and misnomers about the pollution that is associated with the Salton Sea. First, let me tell you about the history of the Salton Sea and how it was formed. The Salton Sea is the largest lake in America's west, formed 104 years ago after an overenthusiastic irrigation engineer triggered a disastrous accident. According to the engineering news record, in 1905, spring floods blew out an intake canal just south of Yuma, Arizona. And in no time, the entire Colorado River was pouring down a 400-foot drop into this old repository known as the Salton Sink. It took over 2 years to close this breach, and by then, an over 500 square mile freshwater lake covered the basin. It was only a prelude to the inevitable. Due to the high sediment content of the Colorado, after time, the river would plug up its natural flow, change direction, and drain into the Salton Sink. Flip-flopping over the generations and ages, the Colorado poured into the sink often enough to create a well-worn channel and a series of huge Salton Seas. According to National Geographic, the last of these prehistoric Salton Seas, named Lake Cahuilla, after a local Indian tribe, dried up 400 years ago. 100 miles long and 35 miles wide, the Lake Cahuilla left a bathtub ring of calcium carbonate and mullet's shells 200 feet above the Salton Sea that can still be seen today. Next, let me tell you how the Salton Sea is sustained and the role it plays today. If you stop and think about it, the Salton Sea has no outlets. It is in an area with only 2.3 inches of rain every year, and the temperature reaches 120 degrees. The sea should have dried up through evaporation long ago. It has been sustained by time after year runoff from nearby lettuce farms, replenishing the water that evaporates and then some. According to environmental magazines, 500,000 acres of heavily watered and fertilized growing fields of the Imperial Valley is one of the most fruitful desert irrigation projects in history. This accidental lake with its prolific fish and nearby fields has become one of the world's most important migratory bird conservation sites in the U.S. Millions of birds, representing 400 different species, can be seen there. An article from National Wildlife states that nearly 95% of California's inland wetlands have been lost to developing in the past 150 years. The sea has taken on a critical importance as a feeding ground for migrating birds headed north along the Pacific Flyway. Science Subcommittee researchers recently completed the most comprehensive survey ever as the sea's biological assets and pronounced it incredibly rich with life. Finally, we'll talk about the pollution the Salton Sea seems to be known for these days. Agricultural wastewater carries various nutrients, including nitrates, as well as pesticides and partially toxic levels of the element selenium. It also carries a ton of salt. The sea began its life the largest freshwater lake in California. According to Current Science magazine, an estimated 4 million tons of salt is leached from the earth from runoff every year. And today, the Salton Sea is 25% saltier than the Pacific Ocean and getting saltier. The runoff also deposits trace elements of the element selenium. Selenium is a mysterious sulfur-like element that's deposited by prehistoric volcanic eruptions. As little as 2 parts per billion can render water, aquatic vegetation, and invertebrates hazardous to birds to eat them. At present day, the selenium level is only 1 part per billion, and is still not dangerous, but is on the rise. Imperial Valley drainage also carries high levels of fertilizers, which promote a superabundance of algae that help turn the water that reddish brown and give off that awful stench that you guys smell. And also, the runaway growth also strips the water of oxygen that fish need to live. In the cold winter, the cold snaps kill off the tropical tilapia, and in the summer, the wind turns up the deoxygenated water, which kill the fish by the millions and leave the beaches littered with corpses. The environmentalists wrote an estimated 14 million fish turned up dead in the year 2000 and 21 in the year 2001. So to recap what we have went over today, I just wanted to talk about the history of the Salton Sea, the role it plays today, and the pollution it is known for. One more little fact is the Salton Sea has a great recreational area for off-road vehicles, from trucks and jeeps to quads and bikes. I hope the next time somebody asks you about the Salton Sea, or even the history of our valley, you'll be able to say a few things I've shared with you today, and I thank you for your time. Good day.